26th of May 2022. You're very welcome back to Read Through Education, Not Fake News. The weather has been wet all night. May was wet and windy up to now, but not too bad. But last night will leave land very difficult for anyone thinking of cutting silage. It's a big problem now at this stage if it doesn't take up. So anyway, here, and that's here in Ireland, and this is on electricity chaos, the chaos in the electricity market, and it's number 45N. I made a mistake on the previous video. I put the wrong letter. So my Jimmy Johnny asked the question about my indexing system. Essentially, there's a number like 45, and then there's 26 letters off the alphabet, and that gives me each number has 26. It's this one system of keeping track. The other thing, if you're following my videos, look at the date it's uploaded. Then that's a very good way of knowing what's what, the date it's uploaded. So sorry if I made mistakes, and we're working on a very shoestring budget, but it's the content that matters more than anything else. Now I'm referring here now to the electricity chaos that's facing us, and this is an article here in the Irish Sunday Business Post, the Sunday Business Post, and it's last Sunday's, and it's by Daniel Murray, and here it's here. So it says, government scrambles to avoid further price hikes amid emergency power supply plans. Government scrambles to avoid further price hikes amid energy power supply plans. So they're bringing in emergency generators, emergency fossil fuel, inefficient open cycle gas turbines and diesel turbines to deal with the complete and utter mess which is our electricity system. Now, rather than read directly from the newspaper, I have it noted here. So they have emergency generators to try to avoid they want to put in these. They have to put in emergency generators, and this is what I have said all along. When you rely on wind energy, you need more fossil fuel, not less. That was always my contention, and it's up to people to judge for themselves, but that is turning out to be very, very true. In fact, wind farms use a lot of electricity. Now, they have a problem because it says that this is politically explosive, which means they're terrorized, they're going to lose votes. I don't know. I tend to think that the Irish consumer and the Irish voter, the more abuse and hardship you place on them, the more likely they're to vote for you. It's an unbelievable reverse psychology, really. But there is such a thing as reverse psychology. Any event, they're panicking over this because it is an unbelievable mess. My worst predictions have come true, and they're worse again. So they have this problem. This is by Daniel Murray. What they're going to do about paying for all this extra fossil fuel generation. Okay. Now, of course, it mentions in the article about data centers. I've dealt with that, and it talks about firm power. Now, this is the first time in a paper I've ever seen the word firm power. Firm power means power you can rely on, and wind and solar is not firm power. So they're talking about installing 600 megawatts at a cost of 300 million, which I would be very suspicious. I think it's a lot more than that. Imagine the budget for 300 million to put in all these power stations, and look at what they do with budgets. I mean, that could be 10 times. That could be 10 times that. I mean, the Irish government is notorious that the agents in the construction, the people in the construction, will get the better of these Egypts, just the same as the hospitals they build and everything else. Everything costs 10 times the normal price. So what are the solutions they have in mind? Well, one is to increase the PSO levy. But then the government has a policy of bringing that to zero. Oh, it is unbelievable. The second is that EirGrid charges the operators. In other words, those who generate the electricity will have to pay EirGrid extra to get it transported to the consumer. Now, can anyone explain to me what's the difference in increasing the cost to the consumer and having EirGrid do it? Where's EirGrid going to get the money? Now the other one is direct state intervention, the taxpayer, and that'll be done through EirGrid. In other words, they'll get EirGrid to run the new generating stations, which is a total going back and probably contrary to EU law from the privatisation of the electricity market. And so here's another great stroke. Where is EirGrid going to get the money to install and to operate all this new fossil fuel, diesel oil, paraffin oil, coal and gas? Where are they going to get it? Now, so you see the three options according to the article. Now, they're talking about the wholesale price of electricity at €100. I have seen it as high as 500 on EirGrid's dashboard. You'll get it there on EirGrid's dashboard. It used to be 57 for fossil fuel electricity average, and wind was getting 76. And as long as the fossil fuel price stayed below the price of wind, the wind energy people just got 76. You see, but they changed. When they were doing out the refit scheme back 10 years ago, they had it that if the price of fuel goes up, the wind energy gets the fuel price. This was the greatest cheat and lie and deceit of all. They told us wind energy would bring down the cost of electricity. They lied on that. The government lied, and the Green Party lied, and all of the parties lied. They told us they'd bring down the cost of electricity prices by putting in wind turbines. But yet, if the price of electricity from fossil fuel sources went from 57 2 years ago to 1,000 now, the wind energy companies have to get that 1,000. If it went to 100,000 a megawatt, which would make it that even the richest couldn't pay for it, the wind energy company have to get that 100,000. And this is why they're so cock-a-hoe. They win either way. If the price of renewable energy is below 76, well, they're guaranteed 76. If it goes higher than 76, they get the fuel price. This is the biggest rip-off of the Irish consumer ever, and I'm probably the only one ever brought it to the light. I studied it. I made videos on it way back at the beginning of my channel. Videos 1A, 1B, 1C. And then there's 1D, I think it is. I think it's 1D where I explain that, how they corruptly rig the whole market against the consumer. And now the crows are coming home to roost. So wind receives the fossil fuel price. Wind receives the fossil fuel price. Sorry if I'm talking low. So the solution seems to be boiling down, according to the article, to using the taxpayer to do it. In other words, printing money. More printed money. That's the solution. Let's get more printed money and give it to the taxpayer. They've already promised a €200 €200 refund out of the taxpayer. So now they're going to use the public purse, the taxpayer, printed money raised on the bond market in New York and everywhere else, so that we have more debt. Now the other thing, of course, is they know that maybe Sinn Féin could be the next government, and the government could fall any moment, and the bigger the mess they hand to Sinn Féin, the better for them. But why is Sinn Féin not raising a racket over this? What is wrong with Sinn Féin that they don't see through this? And I have met several Sinn Féin TDs. They will not listen. They are worse than the other ones. But they're socialists. What do you expect? So this is the idea. Throw it over to the next crowd, the mess. And rely on the media to refuse to give the truth to the people. So one solution is diesel generators. I'll be doing an article on that. I have 2 of them, and at the farm. They're awkward around the house. They're noisy in a town or anything like that. But they do work. They do work. We'll be looking at that now. So that's one way. I mean, if this goes on, it's the only option, because in any event, there's likely to be power cuts anyway. And there are ways of supplying your own mains electricity. Well, I'm not going to it here. Now, I noticed recently, if you go to buy Mark gas oil in a can at a filling station, you have to give your car number, your name and your address. That was never the case before. And this is a clampdown because the law always said agricultural diesel is only for um, it's only for agricultural use. As a farmer, I use a lot of it. It's currently about 140 a gallon average. Sorry, 140 a litre. The camera on this phone is where it's somewhere on the side up here. I don't know where it is on it here, but it means that when I look straight into the screen, when I think I'm looking at you, I'm actually not looking right. So that's something I'll have to get right. But please bear with me because it looks I'm looking the wrong way. But anyway, the thing about it is that they're now clamping down on marked gas oil. And there are two reasons, in my view, for this. It was never a problem before. Construction sites use marked diesel, but it's illegal. A construction site should use road diesel. Now, the other reason is if electric cars take off, there's going to be mass generation by means of diesel generators. It's very obvious. You come home in the evening, you plug in your electric car to the grid, and you get a bill that will put you out of it. You need a mortgage to pay the bill. Whereas if you have a diesel generator there, you can charge your car there using diesel and then run your battery. That's what's going to happen. That's what they fear. They're not totally stupid. That's the situation. So, all right. With that in mind now. Around a farm, the noise will not be a problem. It will be impossible for the revenue to decide to tell you where to use your diesel. I mean, I use the diesel in a heater, in the canteen, and out in the workshop. I use a diesel in my tractors, and I use diesel in the digger. And one of my generators is diesel. And so how are they going to deal with the competition that way, particularly in rural areas? So the more people pull away from electricity and the more people stop using it, the bigger the bill will get on the most vulnerable who rely on it and who are not in a position to do that. Now, the Taoiseach Micheál Martin was over at Davos blowing his trumpet at our expense, and he said wind is Ireland's oil. Wind is Ireland's oil, and they're going to go, and I predicted this, there's going to be windmills in every field. People living in rural areas, please understand, there's no way out of this. They are not going to be stopped unless they're brought down somewhat politically, and I think that Sinn Féin will do the same. The only hope is rural TDs holding the balance of power and get this stopped. Otherwise, they'll go on with this till the whole economy collapses, printing the money to do it. They're on a drug-induced frenzy with this thing, and it's really coming home to haunt them. Now, folks, if I can move here to the Financial Times, this is the Financial Times, and so it's an article about this guy Richie Sunak. He's the Chancellor, and they have the same problem there. Now, there's the article there, and we'll not go into it, but he says that bills are going to rise to 2,800 sterling. Right. Now, if you take a 2-month bill, which we have in Ireland and Britain, I think as well, it's 666 it'll be a bill. So a household will have to come up every 8 weeks with 666 pounds sterling. And that's about 740 euros. Now, one of the things they have in Britain is a price cap, so that they order the electricity companies not to charge more than a certain price. Now, that's a form of tax on its own. They can't charge any more than that. Now, they produce electricity and they're costed in advance, so does the Irish scene a bit, they buy forward. But anyway, what he says is that 10 million British families will experience fuel stress. This is going to be a worldwide phenomenon, fuel stress, because the fuel supply is disrupted in every type, but particularly by the government pushing green zero carbon baloney. And so the whole thing is coming at them from all sides. Now, the only thing I will say about that in Britain, folks, you voted too. You voted. The day has to go when we look at old people in distress and forgive them and have sympathy. We should have no sympathy. They put the governments in that did this. and we have to point the finger at the older generation for swallowing this baloney. But anyway, they're going to be in fuel stress. So you see the problem there. Now, another solution they have in the United Kingdom is an energy windfall tax. Now, just imagine they're talking about putting a cap on the electricity price so that stops companies charging too much. It involves the state in the price. Now, what's the difference in the state generating electricity and the state dictating the price? So that's the first thing. That's the first plan they have. The second one then is to slap a windfall tax on them. Well, if they have a surplus revenue from producing their electricity and supplying it, why is the cap set so high? Surely if they're ripping off the people, the answer is to put the cap down lower, to restrict the price down lower. So now they propose both the cap and a tax. So they want to get their money. So one of the things about all this electricity is the more they get, the higher the price goes, the more VAT, the more value-added tax they get, or sales tax. So now we have the situation of a cap and a tax proposed. Now the tax is only proposed. It is not the law. Okay. Now the next thing then, and it's very same as in Ireland, state intervention. The taxpayer is going to pay the electricity bill and the gas bill. The very, very same as in Ireland. And what are they going to use? Printed money. So this is the solution. Borrow till you can't borrow anymore. And if you can't borrow anymore, put the button on the press and print out billions and billions of pounds sterling and billions of euros. And it always puzzled me why, when inflation is rampant, every country does it. The United States, Canada, Ireland, the EU, Britain, and all these countries, none of them kicks the traces and stops it. Well, one of the reasons is that if you keep your money, if you keep your inflation low, the value of your currency goes up, and it's harder to export goods. So you'd be charging more for your export goods, and your exports would suffer. That's one of the reasons given for that. But the printing presses are going absolutely ape. They're absolutely going mad, and they think this is all right. And because of the voting system, they know that they can throw the whole lot over if there's an election, and the gumbeans of voters do not understand this. They're fooling them up to their two eyes. Now, one of the little articles is the Irish Energy blog. It's not having to do, it's not me, I don't run it, but I know the people who do, and it's a good blog there to get very detailed information on, the Irish Energy blog. And EPAW, European Platform Against Wind Farms, does a good bit on it. What's Up With That is another article, another website that's very good. What's Up With That? There's the Global Warming Policy Foundation as well. There's a good few outlets. Only for these we get nothing. It's total and utter communist style media blackout and media manipulation on everything in the West. And just be aware of that. You cannot trust any media source. You can't trust them. And I mean, the whole media's gone to nonsense and codology and reruns and everything else. It's just the best thing, folks, is get that television and dump it out in the dump. Anyway, there you are, the Irish Energy blog, EPAW, and that. I'm just putting in a bit of plug. These are all trying to point out simple facts. Now, they're talking about a taxpayer state refund of £500 sterling per house, right? £500 sterling a house of direct state intervention, and then same state pushing carbon tax and carbon limits, fining companies for burning fuel to produce electricity. So if a factory can't afford electricity and it's going bust, and it puts in a diesel generator, it'll be caught with the price of diesel there too. So they try to surround them completely, but it's not that easy. It's not that easy. So that's just a roundup of this crazy energy policy, folks. It is absolutely mad. I'm glad to see in the paper that it is politically explosive. I mean, these people are mad enough with everything they do. You'd imagine if they push hard enough that they'd have a revolt, a sort of what they call a right-wing revolt, There's nothing right wing about me. I'm a moderate politically, but they don't want that. And if they see they're threatened, they will panic. They will panic. These are the greatest idiots ever anyone came along. Now, I go back to the point about Britain and Ireland and home generation. You can do it. I'll be looking at it again for farmers. The farmer would be the first to go for this, and the business. But the farmer in particular, uh, he's not affected by noise. You can have this on the farm and cover it up with something and have it silent, and you can get silent diesel generators, and you can have battery packs to keep you going overnight with inverters and all this sort of thing. So I think myself that the obvious solution is turn away from the entire state production of electricity and go over to generating your own. Houses from now on should be double wired. They should be wired for both so that you can have the two systems independent. And there are safety factors to be taken into account. But I'm doing it. I have already cooked meals and everything on my generator over at the farm as an experiment, and I'm moving in that direction. And only if I'm so busy, I'd have it further on. So we look at that. But that, I think, will be the answer. I think they will drive us back to the Stone Age. I think when the people, the farmers, and other producers are faced with going back to the horse and cart, and when people are forced to go out to the woods to gather sticks and all of this, and don't forget they're trying to stop turf being used as well. When people are forced to that degree, if they can get fuel, if they can get either gas that will run a generator, if they can get petrol, even if they can get TVO or paraffin with special engines that will heat it and they'll work as well, and that would be one very good way of doing it. Apart from the diesel, because they're going to be homing in on the diesel because it's a road fuel. But with all of that, I think that's going to be the way to go in the future. Now there'll be solar panels and all that. That'll ease the thing a little bit and allow you to shave and a wee bit that, but it won't heat the house. So there's a crisis, a major crisis. These people are blithering idiots. You just see them there at Boris Johnson, a party, and you just couldn't make up this type of idiocy from Conservatives. You just couldn't make it up. But Ireland is up there with the best of them, and the Taoiseach bawling about wind energy, and that's why I make the point about the European Court judgment 2419. It'll come your way. There's no rural area going to escape this. None whatsoever, and you have to be ready to fight them because they're going to ruin our country with their absolute ignorance. So with that, folks, give me a thumbs up or a thumbs down. I think you'll be giving me a thumbs up on that. It is really astonishing. It's a pity, really, that there's so much death and destruction in Ukraine. It is really a pity because it was the thing that brought this forward. This was going to happen anyway, but this brought it forward, and it really is putting the kibosh on them. You can't. Diesel and fuel are getting scarce. The prices are going through the roof. The bottom is falling out of the money value, and God only knows what lies ahead. But for a few of us to try to stop it, we did our best. But for the rest of the people, the right way to handle them is tell them, damn good enough for you, serves you right. They went running in, marking, oh, look at that lovely green for the Markham there. Let them now put up with it. They made their bed and let them lie in it. Folks, a thumbs up or a thumbs down on this 26th of May 2022. And we'll go off now and get something done. Thank you very much. Bye.